Remember we talked about a program that would allow me to convert between Fahrenheit and Celsius? So we are going to create a program that allows me to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. The program will convert Fahrenheit to Celsius, and so let me write a little bit of pseudocode. I'm probably going to need to declare some variables. The first thing that I'm going to do, the next thing that I'm going to do after I've decided on what variables I need, I'm probably going to want to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. If you don't mind, I'm going to write them down, the shortcut names. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to display the results. Okay, so this is my plan. I have some pseudocode. 3 steps in the plan. I'm going to come back and add a little bit more detail. So what variables do you think that I might need? The way that I can decide on which variables I'm going to need are the conversions that I have to do and the things that I have to display, and then anything that I ask the user for. These are things that I'm going to have to create. Well, let me add a little bit more detail. I don't know what the formula is to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius, so I'm going to do a Google search to find that formula. And I'm pretty sure that it's going to tell me that to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius, it would say that Celsius is equal to Fahrenheit minus 32 multiplied by 5/9. That is the formula. So I'm adding detail. What do I want my results to look like? I'm going to write this is what I want it to say. Something like 25 degrees Fahrenheit is 18 degrees Celsius. Now I know that those are not real answers. I'm just making stuff up, but I'm just trying to find a print statement. This is what I want it to say so that I can build this print statement a little bit later. So if I evaluate the conversions that I have to do and the results that I'm going to be displaying, I'm going to come to the conclusion that I need 2 variables, Celsius and Fahrenheit. So if you don't mind, I'm going to call it cell. I'm going to just default it to 0.0, and then I'm going to create a variable called Fahrenheit. And I'm going to set it to, let's set it to 212, and I'll tell you why I chose that number in just a minute. The next thing that I'm going to do is do the conversion. So based upon this Google search, I found out the Celsius cell is equal to my Fahrenheit value minus 32 degrees. And then I'm going to multiply the whole thing by 5/9. Now I want to make sure that I'm not doing integer division, so I'm going to make both the 5 and the 9, I'm going to make them floating point, just so I'm not doing integer division. Now, before I actually build my print statement, what I would like to do is just to see what answer I am getting. So I'm just going to print Celsius just to see what I'm getting before I go to all the trouble to build my print statement. I just want to make sure that my math is working. Now the reason why I chose 212 as my Fahrenheit value is because there are very few Fahrenheit values that I know by heart what it converts to Celsius. 212 is the boiling point, and Celsius boiling point is 100. So the idea is that if I did it right, I should be getting 100. And that's right. We're going to do another one, because I'm pretty sure that 32 degrees Fahrenheit is 0 degrees Celsius. So it looks like my math is working so far. There is one more that I'm going to do, because 1 correct answer is an anomaly, 2 is a pattern, and if I can replicate it 3 times, I can be reasonably assured that my math is working correctly. And I know that a negative 45 degrees Fahrenheit is equal to a negative 45 degrees Celsius. Negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit is equal to a negative 40 degrees Celsius. Because of the math, that's the one place where those 2 numbers are the same. So now that I'm reasonably assured, I'm going to come in here and build this print statement. This is the print statement that I would like it to say. So this is the print statement. We've decided, the first thing we're going to do is break it down in its parts. I'm pretty sure that these 2 values right here are actually going to be variables. This is also a variable. Which variable is this? Well, just based upon the print statement, I'm pretty sure that this is my far variable and that this is my cell variable, which means what is this right here? Well, this is going to be some kind of a text field. And then what is this right here? This is also going to be some kind of text field. So what I have to build is some kind of a print statement that has a variable along with some text, along with another variable, along with some more text. So I have to decide if I want them to be comma separated or if I want them to be concatenated together. I just have to remember what is the difference between those two separators. When I look at my print statement, I see that there are spaces between the variables and each one of the individual text fields. So there's a very good chance that I'm going to want them to be comma separated so that they will automatically force a space between each one of them. All right, so we decided to build that print statement. The first thing that I need is the very first value is a variable, and that variable is called var. And then I'm going to comma separate it from the second variable, which just the second value, which happens to be a string. And it's degrees Fahrenheit is. And that's what my text field is going to contain. So if you don't mind, I'm going to copy and paste it in there. I'm going to comma separate that from the next element, which is a variable called cell. I'm going to comma separate it from the very last element, which was this text field right here. So I'll copy and paste that in there. When I run the program, now it says negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit is negative 40 degrees Celsius. So now that I'm reasonably sure my math is working, I can change my Fahrenheit value to any arbitrary value, and I can know that my program is working right. If you don't mind, I'm going to comment out that print statement because that was kind of like a testing of my program. There it is. So even though if I don't know that's right, I can be reasonably sure that it is because I have tested my math. So it's working great. There's only one problem. What do you think is the problem with this output? 125.58 degrees Fahrenheit is 51.9 with a whole bunch of 8s following it. While that is probably the right answer, that is not very user-friendly. So what we're going to do is come back around and I'm going to create a more user-friendly output. A more user-friendly output would actually force decimal places on both of my floating point variables. That's what I would really like to do. I would like to force the number of decimal places. So let's concern ourselves with this first floating point variable and the values that come after it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say print, and then I'm going to put a text field here, some double quotes. And then I'm going to copy that first half of my statement. I'll worry about the second floating point variable next, but I'm going to copy that entire statement in between my parentheses. And you're saying, yeah, but wait, 25 is not the actual value. 25 is supposed to be a variable. That is exactly right. 25 is supposed to be a variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the 25 and I'm going to replace it with a percent sign. This is going to tell the compiler when I put a percent sign inside of a text field, it's going to tell it that I want to replace it with a variable. The next thing that I need to include is the data type of the variable that I want to replace it with. Because this is supposed to be the far variable, I'm pretty sure far is a floating point, so I'm going to put an F there. The whole point of doing this was so that I could force decimal places. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put something between the percent sign and that F for floating point. And there's a variety of things that I can put in there, but I'm trying to force decimal places, so if I put .1, I can force 1 decimal place. If I were to put .3, I could force 3 decimal places, but I wanted to force 1 decimal place. There's one more thing that I need, and that the percent sign means that I'm trying to replace it with a variable, so the program has to know what variable I want to replace it with. So I'm going to go to the end of my text field, and I'm going to put another percent sign followed by the variable that I want to replace it with. And I'm trying to replace it with far. So then I'm going to press the run and see if the first half of the statement is working. Well, look, I did manage to force my Fahrenheit variable to 1 decimal place. I also want you to notice that it rounded. When I forced it to a certain decimal place, it rounded. Let me come back and just see what happens if I force it to 5 decimal places. Yep, I'm getting a lot of decimal places. So let me change that back to 1. I'm going to go to the end, and then we're going to worry about the second half of the equation, which means I need to comma separate the two halves. The second half is also going to require a text field. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to copy the 18 degrees Celsius, and I'm going to paste it in there. But we decided 18 is supposed to be a variable, so I'm going to replace the 18 with a percent sign. And then the data type of the variable, this one also happens to be a floating point. And then I'm going to put a 0.1 in there because I also wanted to force that to a 0.1. But then I have to tell the program what is the variable that I'm trying to replace it with. So I'm going to say percent cell. And now when I run the program, let's see if we can force both my Fahrenheit and my Celsius to 1 decimal place. So this is just much more user-friendly output. So this is an amazing program. If I were going to sell this program on the App Store, I know I could get at least 45 cents for it because it allows me to convert Fahrenheit temperatures to Celsius. Okay, maybe not 45 cents because I had to hard code the Fahrenheit temperature that I was trying to convert. Let's say 24 cents. I bet I could get 24 cents for this program on the App Store. If I tried to sell it to my family and friends, I could make at least $1.50. I'm convinced of it. So there is some limitations to this program. And what do you see as the main problem with this program? Well, for me, the main problem is the fact that I had to hard code the Fahrenheit value. And so in theory, it will only convert that one particular temperature. So what I really would like to do is to be able to ask the user what temperature they would like to convert. I think that would make this program significantly more flexible. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it into my notepad. And then I'm going to delete it. And we're going to find out how I can go about reading input from the user.